Good morning, church. It's good to see you all. Isn't it great to be here? So my name is Mark, and I'm the pastor, one of the pastors here at On Mission Church. And it's fun to see some of you who have not been here for a while, so welcome back. And we have some brand new people here today, which is awesome. So thank you for checking us out. All you have to know about me is I am a sinner that is saved by grace. And I deserve the pits of hell, and I've been redeemed by a Savior that has stepped in to take that place. So if that doesn't make sense to you, make sure to talk to us later. We want to have a conversation with you. And this morning, I just want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law, Justin, in China. Buddy, I love you, and I miss you. I wish you were here. We'd be having so much fun. But anybody else tuning in online, thank you guys for taking the time to tune in online this morning to check out our church. So thanks for being here. This last week, I had a weird thing happen in my southern adventures, and I can't make this stuff up. I was leaving our parking lot last Tuesday afternoon, and this is not very southern. This is just weird. And I'm sitting there on Veterans Memorial Highway, where it's supposed to be 45 miles an hour, but no one goes that speed because we're close to Atlanta. So everybody's going 55, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is a 4-lane highway right outside the church here. I'm sitting there in my head, getting ready to turn left, so I'm like, this could be my last moment on earth. Every day I'm leaving, this could be it. And as I'm looking out there, I see this little kid come out from a little side street and just run onto the highway. And it's one of those moments where you're like, okay, am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing? Because it just seemed like it was some weird illusion. And he doesn't just try to go across, he runs into the active lane into traffic. And no one's slowing down. People are flying by this kid. So I put the e-brake on, I get out, I run across Veterans Memorial Highway. I can feel the air of trucks and cars going by me. I run out to this kid and I yell, "Kid! Kid!" And he doesn't look at me. And so his chin is up and he's sprinting. And I'm screaming, "Stop! Stop!" And he's not looking at me. And so finally I realized that maybe there's a disability going on with this kid. And so now I'm sprinting with this kid as cars are just flying by us. I realize I have to take this kid out. So I grab this kid and I get him to the curb, and then he starts fighting with me. So he's swinging at me. I'm like ducking from this kid. He's kicking and he can't talk. I don't know if he's deaf or if there's some sort of autism going on. But all he wants to do is to get back onto the highway. I'm like, God, I really need you right now. Okay, I need you to step in. Because he was fighting, he's wiggling, so we're rolling in the grass. I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. It's just like, I even texted the team, I'm like, team, is this something I deal with every week? Because I need to get braced. So I'm fighting, I'm thinking, somebody is going to pull over. Because here's a 6'1" dude seemingly fighting with a 3'10" kid. Somebody's got to pull over. Well, sure enough, after a few minutes of rolling, he's swinging at me. I'm trying to get him down on the ground. He just wants to go back. Finally, somebody pulls over, and then a bunch of people pull over because they think that I'm beating up a kid, right? So whatever it takes, this just looks really bad. I said, hey, I need some help. My phone's in my truck. I need two hands with this kid. And so these two awesome guys get out, and they help me. And then they're wrestling with this kid. He's climbing on one of the guys. But it's a moment of desperation. When maybe this week you had a moment where you realize you just need help desperately. Because so often it's easy for me to think, well, I'm 6'1", I'm a runner, I can chase this kid down, I got this taken care of. Well, first of all, he would listen to me, but then all of a sudden things just escalated. And I was so thankful for this crowd of people that came in to help. As they called in for help, fire truck, 3 police cars, EMT vehicle. All of a sudden, there's a big crowd of people. They're taking down information. And then we got the kid into the fire truck, and they went to search for where he came from. But there's a moment in my heart where I was just freaking out, like as a father, like thinking what parents would wish someone would do if your kid runs out into a highway. So I'm living this, right? At the moment, I'm thinking, I am so dependent on other people helping me right now. And so as we go into the story of Joseph, walking through some later chapters of the book of Genesis, and we walk through, this series is called Rejection. And an idea behind this is how, Joseph had this life where he was favored, so he had riches, and then riches to rags. He chose purpose over popularity. And so he faced rejection from his own family. So if you're tuning in today, or maybe you're here in the room, if you face rejection from anyone in your life this last week, then this story is for you. And if you're sitting there like, well, that's not me, this story is still for you. There's a lot of stuff that applies. We're just going to walk through this passage just to see what God has us for today. But today we get to see Joseph in a situation where he is completely dependent. He could actually claim that he has some special gifts, and he doesn't do that. And he aims the attention where the attention should be aimed. So this morning, I just want to pray for you before we dive in back into the story of rejection, and then we'll see what God has us for today. So just pray with me. Jesus, we love you. God, good morning. I thank you so much for how you're working here. Thank you for this kid, that he's safe. I'm assuming he's back home, but you know his situation, God. I just thank you for him. I thank you for the people that intervened with this kid. God, I thank you that we can do nothing apart from you. I love that. But God, I thank you. I'm just thinking about Riley. Thank you for Riley that she's here. She is fighting human trafficking. God, we want to eradicate human trafficking from the globe. And you're using her, God. So give her ministry the tools they need to do what they do. God, thank you so much. I'm thinking about Josh. Thank you for Josh and his work at the airline, all that he does in the ministry that he lives with coworkers, and that he's here with us, God, and he knows you, he loves you. So I praise you for Josh. But Jesus, guide us this morning. Have me be a good steward of your word. Have me make sure to put the spotlight on you. And Jesus, I pray this in your name. Amen. All right. If you know this, say this with me. You ready? Rejection is not ejection. It's just a change of direction, and it can be God's way of protection. One more time. You ready? Loud and proud if you got this, you guys. I need some help. You ready? Rejection is not ejection. It's just a change of direction. It can be God's way of protection. So the rejection that you faced in life, maybe some of you have seen how God has used that to set you up for where you are today. I know as I look back on my life timeline of all these bumps I've had, I'm thankful for those bumps and those pits, those tough times, because God was orchestrating that to use it in a magnificent way for something in the future. So we're going to walk through Genesis chapter 41 today, just one chapter. It's loaded. I'll have to skip some stuff for the sake of time. But as we walk through, just to recap, last week we saw where Joseph, a few weeks ago, he was placed into prison because this guy named Potiphar, his wife, was a little too touchy-feely. And so she was pursuing him, and she had these accusations against him. So Joseph was thrown into prison. He's in captivity. And while he's there, we had these guys, you could say they work with the secret service for Pharaoh. And so this cupbearer, the guy was supposed to check the wine, make sure it's okay. And then a baker, they messed up. We don't know what they did, but they made a mistake. They were thrown in the same prison where Joseph was. And Joseph, being in this pit in prison, he didn't play the victim card. He didn't say, woe is me. He played his role, and he rised up in leadership in the prison. Even having these evangelistic moments with the people that are in prison with him. And so we left off last week where these two guys had dreams. And they're used to their magicians in Egypt that could interpret these dreams. Well, they didn't have access to those guys. And so Joseph went for it because God gave him a gift. And he unwrapped the meaning of these dreams. And the guys got out a few days later, and the dreams came true. Good dream for the cupbearer. Not so good of a dream for the baker, right? And so this tragic ending for the baker. But we carry off from there. So these guys are out. They got out of prison. But remember, Joseph said one thing. He said, hey guys, okay, cool. You got this. Cool. You're heading out. Awesome. Don't forget me. Don't forget me. So here's where we leave off as we enter the text in chapter 41. In verse 1, it says this: when 2 full years passed, I think they forgot him. When 2 full years had passed, are you kidding me? Sometimes we read things in the text, we're just like, okay, that's a long time. That's tough for them. You guys, okay, just imagine time-wise. Think about this. So let's just think about what 10 seconds feels like. That's 10 seconds. Kind of awkward, right? The room is stiff. Is he going to make it? Is he passing out? Is he having a stroke? So it's weird. So you imagine 10 seconds of our life. So in one day, we have 86,400 seconds that God gives us each day. He's sitting there in his prison, leading, but you just imagine like the drips just coming down, and he's wondering, hello, is anybody going to remember me? 2 years, 63,072,000 seconds. Forgotten in a pit. It's interesting here in Atlanta, if you're the lead car in an intersection and that light turns green, you have a second and a half. Maybe less. This last week, I literally saw a butterfly. I'm like, oh, sweet. Like, could it go on my finger? Like, it turned green. It was not even a second and a half. Horns are blaring. So Joseph probably was not from Atlanta. God gave him this grace as he persevered, and the patience that blows my mind as he's sitting there for 2 years waiting. And it's interesting inside of this too, because he's in his late 20s, so the prime of his athletic career in life is, if he's an athlete, we know he's well built. So the prime of his life, we know that at age 17 he was sold, and later on today we'll find out at age 30, spoiler alert, age 30 he was released. So inside of this, we think he had around 13 years total of captivity. So 13 years of being ripped from his family, being in a place that's foreign to him. So we think that maybe his first year, it was then when Potiphar's wife gave him this temptation and actually asked him with this invitation. And so they think that possibly he was in prison for 12 years. Some people think this. Maybe 12 years in prison. We know how long 2 years would be. We felt how long 10 seconds can be. So I don't know about you, but I would be boiling hot. Revenge is natural for my way of how I think in my flesh. 2 years. Let's continue on from there. It says Pharaoh, leader dude, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the riverbank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. Verse 5, he fell asleep again and he had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh, he woke up. It had just been a dream. It's interesting in Scripture how we just have 2 people that we know of that really interpreted dreams. We have Daniel, we have Joseph. It's interesting little side note in this, how they were both before like evil dictators. It's almost like God knows that in the face of when everything is so bad and toxic and of Satan, that there needs to be something supernatural, they would say magical, something supernatural has to be presented. So God is using these 2 guys, and you'll see how here in a little bit. Verse 8, it says, in the morning his mind was troubled, so he sent out for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams. This is interesting. He told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. It's interesting because Nebuchadnezzar, he said, okay, you guys, you need to say my dream. Do you remember this? You need to say my dream to me so I know you guys are legit if you're going to interpret this. But Pharaoh's different. For whatever reason, he's more trusting. And you would think the guys, since no one can interpret this, you think they would just make something up. You know, it's like, oh, this has something to do with Chick-fil-A. Like, I don't know. Fill in the blanks. Just something he'd be like, okay, yeah, you're really wise. But these guys, for whatever reason, they're very honest. They say, hey, we don't know. Now, we see this in verse 9. It says, then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, this is a little light bulb moment, okay? He says this. He says, oh, today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Oh, I just remembered this now. Little light bulb moment. Like, I just, forgot that I was like in prison, and so God used this one guy, this Hebrew dude, to say what my dream was. Oh, and the dream was true. And my buddy with the Secret Service, he was like impaled on a pole and the birds ate his flesh. Yeah, now I remember that, 2 years later. Yeah, Thank you, buddy. So he remembers this. He explains in verse 11, each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. Verse 13, and things turned out exactly, you'd think you remember this, things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was impaled. So, naturally, verse 14, so Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon, where he had shaved they think this is actually his whole body. So like full cue ball, you could say. Like back then it was a sign of respect not to be hairy. And so sometimes you see like they might have maybe some leaders had like a goatee thing, but for whatever reason, full respect to be in the presence of the main leader of not just the region, maybe the world at this time, is completely shaven. Arms, legs, no chin strap, no stash, no soul patch, gone, full cue ball, to present him in front of Pharaoh. Verse 15, Pharaoh said to Joseph, he said, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said that when you hear a dream, when you hear a dream, imagine this, if you're Joseph, you've been in captivity, you've been in prison, all of a sudden you come out to the light of day, okay, you get a smell of different air, you walk out, you're being brought, you probably know why maybe at this point, but as you walk out, shaved, cleaned up, smelling good for the first time in probably a long time, Pharaoh says, I heard that you have a gift. I heard that you discovered your purpose. Spotlight is on Joseph. Here's a chance where he can elevate himself. Here's a chance where he can say, yeah, I am so good at this. I'm amazing at this. This is my jam. This is what I do. Look how he responds. Verse 16, one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible. I've been waiting all week to say this in front of you. I have goosebumps already. His response in verse 16, talk about countercultural. Look at this. He says, I cannot do it. But he doesn't finish there. He says, I cannot do it. Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. So I can't do it, but. I can't do it, but so often we think, okay, cool, we have a gift. Maybe it's athleticism, maybe it's an instrument, whatever it is. Maybe you're great with numbers. You think, okay, this is how I want to present myself, that I am so good, because that's natural, right? He says, I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. This is so countercultural. We so often want to think, okay, I want to think I am the man. Little kid, run the streets, chase him, I've got it. I didn't have it. All right, it was a struggle. When the guys were joking later, like, dude, you got to go to CrossFit. I'm like, whatever, guys. He was slippery, right? But these moments where we think we have something and we're reminded we don't really have it. And as we just think about this concept, because again, this is so different than what the world pushes, because we think so often that we can be the master of our life. We think that we can wake up in the morning and be the spouse that our spouse requires and live sacrificially, how Christ loves his bride and his church. We think we can do that by ourselves. We think we can wake up and say, God, we've got this. God, you deal with what you need to deal with. I've got this day. But no, he doesn't. His first words after over 2 years of wrongfully being in prison, as he's excited to see the light of day, his first words are, I can't. I can't. Humility reigning in the life of Joseph. I want to give you guys an image today. Sometimes we forget that right now we are literally on a spinning ball, this place called Earth. So this tennis ball resembles to scale, let's say this is Earth. So imagine this being Earth, okay, spinning. We have the sun bright, shining here. I'm in the darkness. It's called nighttime over here. So here it is spinning. But so your size comparison, you're like bacteria on the thought of an ant on this ball right now. Okay, a little teeny dot, bacteria on the thought of an ant. So in comparison, you think about the size of the sun. So the sun in relation to this would be a half mile away. So down by Publix down the road. That's where the sun is in relation to the earth. But the sun would be 24 feet tall, 24 feet in diameter. You could put 1.3 million Earths could fit in the sun. And here we are, this little bacteria on the thought of an ant on a spinning ball. And we wake up in the morning and we say, God, we've got it. God, I got this today. I got it. You just do you. I exercised today. I ate some food. God, I've got it. When you think about the vastness of the universe, so often we forget. Our next series I'm so excited for in October and beyond, I'm just going to walk through creation and how amazing God is and what he does in his creativity. But to think that we would wake up and say, okay, God, I've got it. I'm strong. I'm 6'1". But to think that why would we not tap into the creator of his creation? That he looks at these teeny little dots that we are, and he says, you know what? I love you. And I actually want to have a conversation with you. And yet we wake up, instead of accessing the throne of the one who put all of this into orbit, who made the sun, who made this teeny thing called planet Earth, the one who made all this, we wouldn't ask him for help in our day. We would look to us. I'm going to let you see two lies that the culture will tell you. These are two main lies that the culture will tell you on a daily basis, are these two lies over here. Believe in yourself and follow your heart. I'm sure you've heard this. Most celebrities, this is what they push. Believe in yourself and follow your heart. Yourself. Let's say you're 5'10", even smaller of a bacteria on a thought of an ant, on a teeny little ball in a universe. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and follow your heart. Give me a break. Jeremiah chapter 17 says, the heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Desperately sick. Who can understand it? Jeremiah gets this. And that's what we're going to follow, is our heart, this pump that puts juices through our body. I'm going to look at this for direction. You understand, if you understand basic theology of creation, things are good, Genesis 1 and 2. There's this fracture into Genesis 3 where things are toxic. We call this the fall. Is we live in this fall. There's disease, there's death, everything just naturally goes bad. Because of God's grace, we have gifts in life. For whatever reason, God allows some things to be good. But to say, oh, I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to follow my heart. Those are some of the strongest two lies you could ever hear. And yet we get this pushed on us all the time from media and from culture. Have you seen this before? Anybody here? This is what you get pushed, right? It's not just me. Wow. So he says he can't, but his God can. Let's look at verse 17. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, and he explained his dream. We can fast forward. So he said, after he said all this, let's go down to verse 25. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, he starts to explain, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. So we have the whole cow thing, we have the heads of grain thing. So he's saying, okay, these two dreams are actually the same meaning. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years. The 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. Verse 27, the 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. 7 years of famine. Verse 28, it is just as I said to Pharaoh, God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered. They have a lot of memory issues back then, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. Verse 32 says this, the reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God. This is interesting. It's been firmly decided by God. So we see these patterns sometimes in Scripture where you get this double emphasis of something. Like if you're a parent here today, like I know in our parenting with our girls, or I have my little estrogen empire at home, right? So sometimes they have to be corrected in line. So I know in discipline, I'll walk up, I'll cup their faces, and I'll say, hey, I love you so much. This is why I'm disciplining you. Because of my unconditional love for you, it doesn't mean I have unconditional approval for the things you do. Say it again. Because of my unconditional love for you, it means I don't have unconditional approval of the things that you do. And they're like, Dad, just speak normal English at that point, right? This doesn't make sense. But sometimes we say things twice. So we see God doing this in Scripture, or he'll just get this double emphasis. So he means this. So this is a potent punch from God. In verse 33, it says this, and now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man. This is kind of funny. Let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. I'm not sure who that guy could be. Maybe somebody has some ideas. Let's get some resumes in. Let's just try to figure this out. Maybe there's some guy who's been in prison forever, has a great attitude, is a good leader. Maybe a good-looking guy has good discernment, like a gift from God, to like interpret dreams. I don't know. Maybe he's out there somewhere. Hello, Joseph. Stop your humble Christianity. Like you God followers, sometimes you just want to be like, dude, that's you. So I don't know if he's saying this sarcasm, but he gives this little promotion behind what he's doing because he probably knows that he is that guy. So then he starts to explain to Pharaoh, Pharaoh, this is what you could do. This is what I suggest. If I'm the guy, I don't know. Verse 34, let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. So we're talking about investment, talking about savings. So he's trying to give this little financial kind of just counseling to Pharaoh. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming up and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. Verse 36, this food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. So he's saying, hey, keep 20%. We're going to have a good season, but don't just eat everything. Don't just go nuts and just be like, woohoo! He says, no. Be wise with what you have. Save that 20%, store up, and be a good steward of what God is pouring on you in a form of a blessing. So now he's even getting more recognized, right? He gave his pitch. I'm sure he had a PowerPoint presentation. It was all polished. He does his pitch, but it's interesting inside of this. Let's go down to verse 38. I love this verse. So Pharaoh asked them, can we find anyone like this man? Can we find anyone like this man? One in whom is the Spirit of God. I love this because Pharaoh in Hebrew, the Spirit is the Ruah. The Ruah is this wind, it's this breath. He sees something supernatural in Joseph. He says, where can we find someone that has this Ruah and who is of Elohim? The Hebrew word here for God, Elohim. We talked about this last week, this mighty above all, the God above all gods. So this evangelistic moment where even Pharaoh recognizes that Joseph, the God he serves, is probably the one true God, Elohim. Where can we find someone? I don't know. What do you think? Verse 39. Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, Good idea. There is no one so discerning and wise as you. He's catching on. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So he got the promotion. He was in a pit. He faced rejection. God gave him a gift. He discovered his purpose. He exercised his gift in all humility. And now he's been given even more authority. I love this story. I'm going to fast forward a little bit through this, but there's so much going on because then all of a sudden at this point, let's go down to verse 46. I love this. In verse 46 it says, Joseph was 30 years old when he had entered the services of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout Egypt. So I don't know about you, if some of you are older than 30, if you rewind back to when you were 30, I don't know how much responsibility you had. But sometimes we do not, like I think back when I was 30, I probably should not have been leading where I was leading. But because of God's grace and people being very gracious with me, they let me lead. So here he is. Here he is. You just imagine him now, just cruising Egypt, riding with his top down. On his license plate is number 2, right? Pharaoh has number 1. Just the wind blowing in his shaved head, which makes no sense, and his hair is not moving, but he's just cruising. He's living the life. He's rolling. God gave him this platform. And he gets out there with all this responsibility, but some of us cannot handle responsibility. Years ago, I was at a youth event, a conference, and the speaker was talking about when he was a little boy, he remembered watching his grandparents have a serious moment in their home where the family was asked to gather around a table. He remembers being like just a younger guy, and he just remembers the air was just sucked out of the room. And he walked over to the table. He remembers pushing his mom and his dad's, his hips apart, and he looked in. And down under the light of the dining room table was a lottery ticket that said $2.4 million. So they had just won. His grandparents just won that. It's interesting because sometimes you would think there would be a reaction of like, woo, we won the lottery. Like, woo, this is amazing. But he was solemn. And everything was quiet. And he said the months that followed that, he saw his grandparents fighting more than ever because they've been handed this, you can call it responsibility. And within a year, they had a divorce and their marriage completely fell apart. They had so many butting of heads and ideas of how to spend this on money, they could not agree, and it just ripped their family apart. Joseph, at age 30, vice president, number 2 in command over the whole area because he was a good steward of what God gave him. And he handled it well. So here he is cruising around. And just to kind of skip to the end, so he's using his gifts. And he's letting the people know, okay, yes, the abundance is coming. Let's save that 20%. Okay, so he's saving up all this. And then the famine comes. And they had stored up all this stuff because of the wisdom that God gave to Joseph. And they could distribute as needed from there. And so the blessing comes in many different ways for Joseph. If we look down to, let's look at verse 50. It says, before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph of Esneth, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh and said, it is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's household. So he's holding his son, and this is amazing, the gift that God can give us with children. Sometimes the things of our past, the scars, the pits we've been in, sometimes we forget those things when we have kids. I know for myself as a dad, I forget myself more now that we have kids. Like it just kind of cured us from the life of fulfillment that we had before we had kids. And now I'm like, did I even look in the mirror today? Like, I don't even know. Is like something in my teeth, Mill? Can you tell me? Because I didn't even look this morning. Because it's all about the kids. Manasseh, his son, he's saying it's just this like image of forgiveness. Like, God, it's gone because of this gift of this kid. He could let it go. Verse 52, the second son he named Ephraim and said, it is because God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. Not playing the victim card, not wallowing in this pit, dedicating the name of this kid for the fruitfulness, even in the rough patch of his life. It's interesting in the timing of this, how God works in our timing. Because our timing, we want to line up with His timing. But so often we try to camp in, God, I want this now. But if God, think about this, if God would have let Joseph go early, or if Joseph would have been out of prison early, if he would have been with his accusation from Potiphar's wife, if he was sent back to the land of the Hebrews, if he would not have been there, who would interpret this dream from Pharaoh? God using Joseph to interpret this dream, right? Famine is coming. We should probably store some things up using his wisdom because God's timing is perfect timing. I know for some of you here this morning, you're thinking, oh man, but I just wish I could have a map, right? You just wish you could see, okay, what does God want for me in my life? Where am I supposed to go? Who am I supposed to date? Who am I supposed to marry? What college? What career? What kind of financial decisions? All this load of being a human, we get so boggled down with all these details about life. And we want to look at the map and say, God, just give us direction. But what you really need is a guide. You need someone that would step in and just hold your hand and say, hey, follow me. I've got this. I know where this is going. Just hold my hand and follow me. That's the difference between a map and a guide. Because when you have a guide, you're like, I can't. God, it's just you. You take this. I don't know how to handle this medical diagnosis. I don't know how to handle these issues that are going on with my spouse. I don't know how to handle the fact that my kid is out of control. So you want this map, but really we need a guide. And this guide, as many of you know, is the guide that we find in the life, the death, and the burial of Jesus Christ. When Jesus said, follow me, deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow me. That's who our guide is. But it's not easy. We want to have that map. We want to know what tomorrow brings for us. We want to know the reason why today happened. What is the purpose inside of this? And as the band comes up this morning, or one thing for today I want you to know is simply, I can't. I can't. And culture, this is not a message from the culture today. The culture says, you've got it. Believe in yourself. Follow your heart. But as Christ followers, we're called to just say, hey, I can't. I can't. Jesus, you take this. Because I cannot deal with what's been handed to me in my life. I can't. In this story of Joseph, there are so many parallels with the New Testament with Jesus. And something I loved last week is how in prison, you have the cupbearer, we have the baker. So they're rightfully thrown into prison. And this represents us today because we are really on this little ball we call earth. We're here in this fallen nature. We are actually in prison. We're in bondage with sin. We're under the rule of the evil one. But in this story, the parallel is that God sent someone innocent to come in prison and to serve and to lead and to love and to set us free from that bondage. And like Joseph was sent into prison to be the one to use his gifts for the cupbearer and the baker, that is Jesus for us. He comes into our life. He came in innocent. He paid the price on the cross, something that I should have to pay for. He said, you know, Mark, I'm going to step in for you because I love you. And so this morning, if you do not feel loved, if you feel the rejection of the world, rest in the knowledge that we have a Savior that loves you and that has stepped in our place to take that penalty. And he says, I'm just going to take this for you because I love you. I'm going to pave a way for forgiveness to happen. This is what Jesus did for us. And so it's so important as Christ followers that we don't just try to do life on our own. We need to have accountability. So tonight at 5 o'clock, please tune in. Brandon and the team, they've done so much work behind the scenes to make sure that we can get you into a group. And we talked about a few weeks ago this thing called On Track, and I got excited, and I said we're going to open registration. So we're going to have the Wise Council and elders go through first. It's going to take probably 13 months to have the church go through to know just how much we love you. We want you to have this relationship with God. We're going to walk you through our vision. More information about that to come. But today, what a great day to say, I can't. My challenge for you this week is this. When you wake up in the morning, don't just get up and do whatever your routine has been. It's so easy just to roll over and just look at the phone and roll over and, whatever, fill in the blank, whatever you have. This morning, do this. This week, every morning this week, I want you to wake up and get out of bed, drop on your knees and just say, God, I can't. I can't. God, you take this day. I know you can, but I can't. I am a bacteria on the thought of an ant on a ball in orbit right now. Creator of everything, can you take this? God, I can't. That's my challenge for you. Jesus, thank you so much, God, for the story of Joseph. Jesus, thank you so much for the parallels with Christ, with you, with the New Testament, how you have stepped in. And you said, hey, I know you can't, but I am someone who can. So God, if there's anyone here today who's broken, anyone here today who's searching for meaning, anyone here who today does not feel loved, anyone facing rejection in life, have this be the Sunday that they can say yes to you. Maybe there's some believers here that just have to say, God, I can't. I can't. But Jesus, we just thank you for you and the work that you've done on the cross, God. We love you so much. You are amazing. You are creator. Thank you for saving us. And Jesus, I pray this in your name. Amen.